Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, there's something that I want to talk about today, and that's going to be an important topic, especially when we consider the massive number of new players that have come to Wuthering Waves as a result of the incredible success that version 2.4 has been. There's a lot of new people that are playing the game, and that also means there are also a lot of new people that are kind of breaking their accounts. And when it comes to Wuthering Waves and when it comes to breaking accounts, you can't really do that much irreparable damage unless you're like straight up deleting resources. And that's because a lot of stuff in the game is focused on Waveplates, this time-gated one that's going to replenish over time. But when there's also content in the game, like the Tower of Adversity, that resets on a monthly basis, and there's also content like Whimpering Waves, which also reset on a monthly basis, and then also have Astrite rewards, then, ladies and gentlemen, getting to the end game, making sure that your progression is installed, that sort of stuff can be a very high priority for a lot of players. And so with that, what I wanted to do today was actually go over 10 different ways for you to avoid bricking your account and actually make sure that you have the best, fastest, and most efficient progression possible. Because I know that's something that a lot of players are keeping top of mind. Being good at a gacha game is something to brag about. Of course. Why don't we go ahead and start off the discussion with something based off of what we just introduced, Waveplates. Now that we're on the first topic, which again is Waveplates, what I want to talk about first is not wasting them. Because one thing that you get in this game, aside from the daily regeneration of Waveplates, is also the fact that you're able to refresh your Astrite and then also use crystal solvents. We're going to be covering both of these topics today, what you should actually be spending your Waveplates on, and, well, how to avoid some big mishaps, especially with all the resources you get in this game. The first things first is, do keep in mind, you have a lot of free resources nowadays. Wuthering Waves, when it released, did not have resources like a Forgery Advanced Supply, which you're seeing over here. And what you'll see is that this is actually something that you get from clearing events in this game, from clearing the free events that occur every single patch. And what you'll notice is that, well, you have resources over here that are used to level up characters, weapons, and abilities. And so what you'll find is that, oh, I can get these from supply packs, synthesis, conversion, all of that, or forgery challenges. And this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. These forgery challenges, well, would you look at that? These forgery challenges actually cost Waveplates. And so my suggestion to every single player is that instead of going ahead and actually doing your forgery challenges first, you should go ahead and see what you're actually getting from all of the different events that you have. As you go through and you look at some of these events, for example, this is the TFT TCG game. This is giving a lot. You see over here, this is like 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, almost 20 purple boxes, and you can get 2 purple boxes from spending 80 Waveplates. Each of these is the equivalent of maybe like 40 Waveplates, potentially even more depending on how bad your luck is. And that's just something that you get from playing the events. And you can even go forward and look in the shop, and you can see over here, you get a resource from completing this event, and you can even buy more of those specific materials in here as well. And that's just really something you have to keep in mind. Kuro Games has been incredibly generous with these forgery challenge replacements, and you just want to make sure that you're not double dipping and over investing, right? If I already get all of these and I unlock these when I already have a bunch of those purple boxes, I might level up the character that I'm trying to use these for and then end up with like 30 left over. And sure, I'll be able to use the excess. Let's just say I have like too many of a certain mat. I can go into like conversion and use some of my other ones, but you'll notice that I had to put in 2 to just get 1, and that's a 50% loss on whatever I'm putting in. And in a game like this is what I consider, if you're ever using this feature, it's a little bricky once you think about it, right? You're literally losing half of the Waveplates that you decided to spend. So do keep that in mind. You can be a lot smarter with how you're spending your resources. Now, let's get into the next tip. And that one is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, focused on your crystal solvents. So when it comes to crystal solvents, there is one tip that I have for you at the start of the game, and it's going to be based off of your union level. And it's pretty simple. If your union level is not at least level 40, do not touch your crystal solvents. Do not use them. You should absolutely 1,000,000% not be touching these until you're at least union level 40. And the reason for that is actually quite simple. It's because of tacit fields. And what you'll notice, right, is that, oh, I can do like SOL level 1, right? And you'll notice, oh, I'm getting blue tuners. That's pretty bad. 2, it's still blue tuners. 3, it's purple tuners. 4, it's starting to hit gold tuners. And guess when you hit SOL 3 phase 4, union level 40. It's when you're union level 40, because that's when you get to unlock gold tuners. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Your number of gold tuners that you get from tacit fields actually doesn't increase. It actually doesn't increase after UL 40. You get 20 from UL 40, and you get 20 by the time you get to UL 80. So there's not really a significant difference at all. The end result is, once you get to UL 40 and you're able to unlock, right, those gold tuners and those gold echoes, then just go ahead and spend all of your crystal solvents on tacit fields. And that'll allow you to build up a big store of tuners to be able to upgrade echoes and actually get this equipment, right? That's kind of like needed to clear the end game content that we were talking about, right? Actually get it leveled. The thing that you'll be maybe a little bit shorter on, that you do end up getting a little bit more of as your union level increases, is your echo experience. But like with tip number 1, right? All the stuff we talked about before, you end up getting a lot of echo experience from events. And as you progress through the game, you kind of end up overstocking on echo experience. Let me just show you what my inventory looks like in the end game. Yeah, that's 507 gold tubes. Yeah, this is 507 gold tubes over here. Let me just show you all real fast. And the count is only getting higher every single update. It's literally only getting higher. And that's because of our next tip. And that's going to be about leveling echoes efficiently. Because a lot of people, ladies and gentlemen, aren't using this. And all they're talking about is how few echoes they actually have. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next section that we're going to be talking about is leveling an echo efficiently, because I don't think a lot of people are doing this. And that's the reason why they don't necessarily have a lot of echo experience. We're just going to be using a sample Lupa piece over here, using the Flaming Claw print set, a fusion damage bonus on the side, and I'll show you the proper way to level up an echo. What you'll notice over here is that you have some settings, right, that you can choose when it comes to leveling up an echo. You can choose with this gear icon, as you're adding experience to it, to either choose level cap or no cap. If you choose no cap, you're breaking your account. Yep, you're breaking your account. If you choose to do this and then complain about your lack of echo experience, this is a self-inflicted issue. Because what you'll notice over here is that it costs me a lot of echoes, or it costs me a lot of echo experience to take one to plus 25, right? That's like 24, maybe 25, 26, 27 gold tubes. If I go by level cap, what I could do is I can put in a little bit of echo experience at a time, right? And decide, ooh, that's a kind of a bad roll. I don't want defense on my attack-focused character. Let's just see what the second roll looks like, right? Ooh, I don't want basic attack damage on my fusion damage or on my liberation damage character. Lupa's liberation damage, she doesn't really use this stat. And I'm like, ooh, that's not that good. Maybe I should stop leveling it. Maybe I shouldn't invest more echo experience and tuners into this piece because it's not good. You want to know what would have happened if you went no cap? You would have taken this thing all the way to plus 25. You would have basically, and this is just for demonstration purposes, do not do this unless you want to break your account. I would have spent all those resources, right, on this piece that in the first 2 rolls I would have known as bad. I just spent like 25 gold tubes instead of, you want to know how many tubes I would have spent instead? 4. I just spent 27 gold tubes to get an unusable echo when I could have just spent 4 gold tubes to get an unusable echo. And so many people do this. And you want to know the worst part about it? People rationalize this, right, by saying, oh, well, you could just go ahead, right? It's not a big deal. You could just go ahead and like refund the echo. That's a plus 25 echo that I just put in, and now I'm only getting it up to plus 22. There's EXP loss. And a lot of people, and again, this is just for demonstration purposes, I'm purposefully bricking my account. A lot of people do this, and this is the worst. This is one of the worst things you can possibly fucking do. You want to know why this is bad? Because I've only taken this up to plus 22, and let's just start tuning it, right? Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, that's pretty good. And you just decide, it's not that good. I don't really like it. I'm going to throw this one away as well. And then you go ahead, right? And then you take that plus 22 echo that you don't really like, and then you put it in again. And you're like, okay, Now I'm taking this one to plus 20. Man, this is so fast and this is so easy. What do you think is actually going on over here? You're literally just throwing Echo Experience into the fucking garbage by doing this. You turned a plus 25 piece into a plus 22, and then you turned the plus 22 into a plus 20. And you're just repeatedly doing that over and over and over. What you have to fundamentally realize, right, is that to take a piece up to plus 20, that costs 16 gold tubes. This is what it costs to take it up to level 22. We just put in 5 more gold tubes to take this to level 22. That is what you're just throwing away by throwing away this plus 22 Echo. And you only were able to get an Echo to plus 22 because you threw away a plus 25 one. And so seeing this plus 22 number is literally the biggest mismanagement of resources you can have in this game. If you're ever doing this, you are literally just throwing Echo Experience down the drain, because that's 5 gold tubes that are being wasted or basically further reduced by 70%, which is the Echo Experience refund from recycling, that you're just accepting. You're throwing all that stuff away because you're too lazy to do something else. And this is the other thing that people are too lazy to do. Let me show you the proper way to recycle your Echoes. You just go into the backpack, right? You find a piece that's not good like this one, right? You click remove. You don't worry about the prompts too much. And then you get a screen that'll let you just delete the Echo from your inventory and get all of the experience back, the 70% back, without having to throw it in during the leveling page. And when you do this, right, you just get the gold tubes back, you just get the tuners back, and you're gonna be able to actually allocate the resources way better. And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not doing this and you're just throwing shit into the leveling screen, you're wasting Echo EXP. And a lot of people can call that breaking your account. So yeah, that's what it looks like over here. That's the proper way to actually get it done. Now it's time for us to talk about something else when it comes to progression, and that's going to be your data bank and some of your Echo boxes. Next topic is going to be about not just the progression of Echoes, but actually the progression of your characters. And this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people complain about certain things in Wuthering Waves, one of them being your weekly boss mats. And weekly boss mats are, I'll just do this for demonstration purposes. Weekly boss mats are something, right, that you can only do about 3 times per week. And you get about 3 drops of them every single time you go in. And so you end up with about 9 per week. What you'll notice over here is that even in the end game, even with end game builds, my characters still have abilities that are 6 out of 10. And this is the reason why. Some abilities are not worth maximizing and not worth spending weekly boss mats on in the first place. Because I'm not taking these abilities to level 10, I've just saved on a week's worth of weekly boss mat farming. It only takes me 2 weeks now to basically get a character up and running. And so because of that, right, you need to look into and actually figure out the rotations that certain characters are using. For example, Carlotta uses her normal attack 1 time in her traditional rotation. She does a plunge attack that does 76.69. I can decide to invest in it and increase the damage of her rotation by 7% motion value, or just realize it's probably not worth it. You can just max out all of the actual abilities that deal damage instead. So for a character like Carlotta, you should figure out that, hey, it's not worth it to level this one up because I'm improving my damage by about 0.2% in a rotation. And the same exact thing, the same exact argument can apply for an intro skill. And that means you're saving on things like, again, those Waveplate constrained resources that we're seeing over here, and you're saving on weekly boss mats as well. And so this is where the advice comes in, right? You should figure out what attacks characters are actually using. For example, my Zani, she's got a level 7 intro skill, or she got a level 5 intro skill. It's not even level 6, a level 7 basic attack. My Gion, he's got a level 5 normal attack because all he does in his rotation is a plunge, and a level 6 intro skill. There are some characters though that do actually want levels in their intro skill. For example, you're gonna have Shorekeeper over here where you don't actually want to max out her other abilities, but you do want to max out her intro skill because that's where a lot of her damage is. The only characters in the game that I can recommend maxing out the intro skill of is going to be Shorekeeper and also the new unit, Lupa. And that's pretty much it. Make sure you figure out which priorities are going to be where in certain kits. For example, a character like Camellia actually wants her normal attack and her resonance skill to be maxed out, but she definitely doesn't need her intro skill. There are some characters that are a lot more expensive compared to others, and it depends on how many many overall attacks they use in their kit. And that's just something that comes with trial and error. And when maxing abilities is really important to make sure that the values are, high enough to tackle endgame content, well, you do want to keep that in mind. But it's also fair to say that maxing these out can get very expensive. And the smarter you are with your investment, the more characters you're able to build. And the faster you're able to build characters using your Waveplate constrained resources, the faster you'll be able to clear the endgame. You can kind of see how it's all fitting together right now. This is what I mean by optimization. And yes, while leveling up your intro skill to 10 isn't gonna destroy your account, it is gonna brick your progression pretty badly, because those are weekly boss mats that you won't be able to spend leveling up the important abilities of other units. Now let's move on to one that's a little bit more geared towards the TOA. The Tower of Adversity can be a bit of a daunting objective for a lot of players, especially considering the idea, right, that people are spreading that you need 3 teams to be able to clear it. In reality, you kind of only need about 2.5. And let me explain why. So, when it comes to the TOA, this is how it works. Every single character is going to have a vigor of 10 whenever they start out a clear. And what that means is that various stages, for example, the middle one takes 5 vigor per floor, various stages are going to deduct vigor from that total. And so, what you're seeing over here is that, these fresh characters, if they're used in the middle tower, they're going to take 5 away. And you'll notice the team that I just used, this Camellia one, they only have 5 left. And this is the thing, right? When the cost of every single stage is 1, 2, 3, 4, that means that the team that I just used in the middle tower, I'll be able to use them on floors 1 and floors 4 over here. And that means when floor 4 is typically the hardest one with the hardest enemies, I'm only gonna need like a half-built team to be able to take on level 75 and level 80 enemies. And when these cost 2 vigor over here and 3 vigor over here, I might be able to use the same team across both of the side towers. So that's what I mean by 2.5 teams. You're gonna need 1 built team to handle this side, the same built team to handle this one, and then a second built team to handle that, and then also handle this, and then a half-built team to take on the 2 middle ones. And that's kind of all you need to be able to clear. And so, what that means is that you should really heavily prioritize having 2 DPS characters prioritized to be able to clear the TOA as fast as possible. You're seeing an example over here of what many could consider a triple DPS team. This is one of the worst teams you can invest in as a new player. My recommendation is that you stick with the team that's kind of like more of like a hyper carry lineup. This is an example of a hyper carry lineup where I'm using something like a Gian, a Shorekeeper, a Mortifi, and then maybe the other team that I invest in is, you already saw it before, but a Camellia, Verena, and Sanhua. And when these teams clear the end game perfectly fine, and they both also, right, use a 4-star support, this will get me in a spot where I'm able to clear pretty much all of the end game at a really fast pace. And these characters are also usable in a game mode like Whimpering Wastes. My recommendation would be for teams that are really affordable are going to be ones that involve DPS characters like this. These are my top 3 picks. Mortifi supports Gian, Spectral Rover, who you get for free by the way, supports Phoebe, and Sanhua, who you get for free, supports Camellia. And that's going to be the situation over here. These are easily the most affordable characters in the game to be able to clear the TOA. And there's really no argument when it comes to these. And so choosing to invest in either of these 3 options, or really 2 out of the 3 over here, is going to get you some great results. However, there are some objectively top picks out of these 2. And that's just taking Phoebe out of the equation. And the reason for that is Whimpering Wastes, which is another endgame mode that focuses on AoE. And if you try using Phoebe in Whimpering Wastes, you're probably going to want to uninstall the game, because she is the worst character in Whimpering Wastes that is only usable if you pull another limited 5-star like Chacona to make her usable. And that's due to the design of Phoebe's kit. I do have a video on it, so you can just check that out to see what her issues are. And so again, my top picks for this game mode, for both endgame modes, if you're a newer player, it's actually gonna be Gian and Camellia, because they're the most affordable ones. You can hyper invest in just these 2 as DPS characters. You can use them with 4-star supports. They'll clear the TOA, and well, ladies and gentlemen, they will also clear Whimpering Waste at the same time. Both these game modes are time limited, and both of them give Astrite. And when that's a big focus for somebody that's starting out, they're probably some of the best beginner friendly units that you can have on the roster. Now, let's move on to the final tip, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be focused on, well, every single element of progression, and that is going to be, unfortunately, the importance of playing the story in a story-based game. Wuthering Waves is a game that actually has an amazing fucking story. It's really, really, really good. But there are going to be a lot of new players, right, who aren't going to be able to experience all of it immediately right off of the bat. One thing that the story unfortunately does lock off in this game is actual progression. Because to get a character to level 90, like Cartithia, you actually need to collect a certain resource. And Cartithia's resource that's required to actually, you know, ascend her and get her going, it's going to be a bamboo iris. Behold, where can you actually get it? It's only in Septimont. And the only way that you're able to unlock Septimont, ladies and gentlemen, is to have played up to version 2.2 in Wuthering Waves. That's when you unlock Septimont. It's right after that. And unfortunately, right, the end result is that, well, you can't get to this region and you'll be stuck with like a level 30 or 40 character. Yeah, that's a little rough. Some characters will literally not be level upable, right? Like the one that's on banner at the time of recording, unless you've progressed the story enough. I think that this is like a little bit of like a blend of Kuro probably should have a responsibility to actually go ahead and make the area either accessible earlier or put more of this actual level up resource in the shop, because they've streamlined a decent part of it already, and I think it's really just a little bit of developer oversight. They've already streamlined it by giving people early access to bosses that they haven't unlocked yet. For example, the Lioness of Glory, which is required to actually get Cartithia to a high level, that is available with early access if you don't unlock it on the map. And so I really just think it's like a bit of a mess up on their end to not make the lootable materials that you need to level up a character also equally as available after a new character releases. But this is also another big reason for why you want to get into the story, and that's going to be the new main character upgrades. This is not a game like Genshin Impact. Wuthering Waves is nothing similar to Genshin Impact when it comes to the design of its male character, or sorry, not its male character, its main character. Wuthering Waves MC is actually good. For example, you get 3 different versions that are available throughout progressing the story and also doing the exploration. Spectro Rover is an incredibly strong sub DPS that can also serve as a main DPS and is a ridiculous enabler for Frazzle teams. Havoc Rover is one of the better DPS characters in the game. They do feel a little bit clunky, but their damage output and the fact they have a literal sequence node that just gives them 25% crit rate. And the end result is that their build, like, they reduce havoc resistance as well. They can deal a lot of damage, like some of the highest damage in the game. And they also have some very strong teams with very affordable characters like Dan Jin or San Hua. They're also an option, right? I mentioned before, like low budget characters that can be used to like clear. They're also an option too, though they might require a bit more investment than the other options I mentioned before, but they're, you know, they don't require to be pulled on limited banner. And then you have Arrow Rover over here, right? Who is basically one of Cartithia's best teammates, if not her best overall teammate. And that's the thing, right? All of these main characters are incredibly good. They all have their own purpose. They all can fulfill a very, very powerful spot on your roster. But you gotta play the story to unlock them, buddy. You gotta play the story to unlock them, bucko. And of course, not playing the story, not having access to these units, and not seeing the power and the flexibility they can give to other units on your account, intentionally not doing that is kinda breaking it. And so yeah, I think that will be our final tip for everybody over here. Hopefully I've given you all some good reasons to continue engaging with the game, and hopefully you've all gotten a bit more of a detailed overview on how to best spend your resources, especially the time-limited ones, in every single way possible. I guess the last thing is do keep in mind that there are some resources in this game that I don't recommend farming very much of at all. This might just be like a final tip, or maybe it'll be the last one. Fuck it, who cares? And that's gonna be simulation challenges. I actually genuinely do think that simulation challenges, if you start doing every event in the game, might actually not be necessary. I think that these, to a high degree, can be considered a little bit of a bait. And the reason why I say that is because, well, Kuro Games gives us so many rewards. Kuro Games gives us so many overall rewards in terms of like the events, the side quests, all of that. If you actively play the game a lot, it's really hard to run out of these. And unless you're pulling every single limited character and every single weapon, it's really hard to run out of shell credits, and it's really hard to run out of EXP. But if you play the events, you pull maybe one character a patch, it's kind of impossible to run out. But the more characters you pull, the more weapons you pull, the easier it is to run out. So really, this is like a spender problem. If you spend money on the game and you spend money on banners, you should have an issue over here. And now let's move on to another one, and that's actually going to be synthesis. Yeah, you know, okay, we'll just make this as long as it can possibly be. Let's move on to our, I guess, our actually last tip over here, and that is going to be the synthesizer, because I think a lot of people might be missing out on some of the features that we have. There are a bunch of different things you can do with the synthesizer. We showed off some of the features already. I just wanted to talk about some of the lesser known ones that people might not actually be keeping top of mind. I mentioned before all this stuff about blue tuners, right? How you really shouldn't be spending too many of these, how you should be trying to get to gold echoes as fast as possible. That's because, ladies and gentlemen, you can actually turn your tuners into other tuners. And so, if you go ahead and you level this up, right, I'm able to turn my blue tuners, which can only be used on blue echoes, which are dog shit, into purple ones. And then I can turn all these purple ones into gold tuners. And so, that's why leveling up purple echoes is so bad, because you're wasting all these purple tuners that can just be turned into the gold ones that are a lot more important and actually a lot better. And if you're running out of things like echo experience, you can actually craft a decent number of them, around 8 blue tubes. You can also craft weapon experience as well by collecting these little fluorite things in Mount Firmament. You could just grind that if you want. I personally don't do it very often, and unfortunately you can't just like click it to find out where all the drops are. You actually have to look it up. But yeah, that's something you can do. It's not really that necessary in my opinion. We've already talked about how you can save echo exp anyways, so it's not actually a concern later on. Those are just some of the last couple of things you can do with the synthesizer. And now for like one last final tip. It's going to be in the line of echo farming. If you're ever farming the overworld for echoes, make sure you actually consume one of these sweet and sour porks before doing that, and don't consume one of these before farming forecast, because they have a pity. I'm just going to be honest here. We're not going to focus too much on echo farming, because I actually have a fully built out guide for that goes into this into a lot more detail. And if you're at the point where you're actively farming echoes, I mean, you're not really at the risk of bricking your account, because you're just adding more stuff to your inventory. So it's not like that relevant for the discussion. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've covered a bunch of different tips. I don't even know if it's 10 anymore, but I'm going to put 10 in the title, because I think we've gone around the world when it comes to actually prioritizing the fastest ways to actually progress in this game. With that, hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you found this, you know, a great resource to maximize the efficiency of all of your resources. And now, with this knowledge, you'll be able to go ahead and, you know, go on your mission to conquering content like the Tower of Adversity much faster than you might have been able to before. And make sure you give Whimpering Waste a try as well. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what you all think. Peace.